Welcome back, my fellow Supergenes. I have to tell you, when I started preparing for today's episode, I realized how the past several conversations have been linking and building beautifully upon each other. We have talked about vitality with Bianca Best. I talked about momentum and belief. We talked about fortitude with Kat Diab. And underneath all of these conversations, there has been a thread. This question that keeps surfacing no matter what we're discussing, and it is this: what does it actually take for a woman to lead herself? Not her team, not her household, not the version of herself that everyone else needs, but herself from the inside without losing the thread of who she is in the process. That is the conversation I have been working toward, and today I am so excited because we are going there. My guest is a woman whose background might surprise you. She's been a florist, graphic designer, a musician. She holds an MBA. She is a PCC accredited coach, a certified trainer in nonviolent communication with 15 years of practice, and the founder of Feminine Mastery. She's Austrian by origin, based in the UK, and she's built her life's work around one deceptively simple idea: that the most radical thing a woman can do is stop being run by the patterns she never consciously chose and start living from what she actually needs. She also is building something she calls a movement of non-resentfulness, which we're going to get into. Stepping into your own power fully without pointing blame at the other side, because she knows from the inside that the blaming keeps you smaller, and she's done with that. She's also the wife of Harry of She's Not Crazy series, and you guys might recognize that because he joined us a few episodes ago. But she is here today entirely in her own right with something of her entirely own to say, because when a woman stops being run by everything she never chose and starts leading from everything she actually is, that is not growth. That is sovereignty. And that is exactly the Supergene we are unleashing today. So, Kersten, welcome to Supergene Unleashed.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
It's so lovely to have you here. And I want to start with the myriad of your background because it's quite a spread of the things that you have in your profile and your bio of what you've done. And it's definitely not a linear career path, but somehow it makes you who you are. So I want to talk about how on earth does all of this come into who you are today?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a question I'm dreading, and it's also a question of loving, because the older I get, the more all of these different stages in my life make sense, and the picture comes together as one. Every decision, I still am very curious about life, to experience life through different lenses and to be driven by passion. So this let me follow various different paths, never out of failure before or because of I thought I should do this, but because there was something calling, there was a passion. I went there, and I was someone who steps in, or I'm still am someone who steps in fully, so to make this thing work, to not just do the one little thing, but to record studio albums and to do it fully, to go on tour, or to be a florist and to make this beautiful apprenticeship in the middle of Vienna in one of the most beautiful flower shops, and to full on invest into this. And then the next thing called. And so none of this I left fully, but I just wove the next thing. I experienced the next thing that I could then add to my basket. Now in hindsight, and often I shamed myself to being so varied. We hear this as women. It's like, you can't decide on one thing. What is it now? I guess a lot of the people, the women who listen, know these voices of self-judgment, of you should know your path, you should follow through with one thing. You can't mean it fully if you are now changing again. So I recognize that change is a pattern in my life. And it is something that I've tried to hide for a while. And it comes together now in a quite magical way, which I love. For example, I have this absolute passion for flowers. Like I call it an addiction. It's like full on. And after my university degree, I moved to Paris and then I moved to Vienna, and I just wanted to do this flower thing because I needed to be with these flowers. And then in my university studies, I just missed the human element. So nonviolent communication all of a sudden came into my life, and I recognized how much more interested I am in the human experience, in really getting people to thrive, not just to manage. And so I did a deep dive into this, and now I am an entrepreneur. I run my own business. I am a communication trainer and a coach. And I have a big flower tunnel where I record my content and where my husband records his content. And so the flowers are an integral part of this journey. So yeah, it's been a picture book of different opportunities that I took. And there's one baseline that I do recognize. So it sounds like, oh, wonderful. And then you're this, and then you do this. But most of it was driven by enormous amounts of stress, by having to make it work, by challenging myself very, very harshly to make it work because I chose something else. So now it has to be successful. So now I have to bring it to something. So now I have to make money with it. Never do something just for fun. Always make it work. And I once had a consultancy by a kinesiologist because I did a singing training, and we were just sent there. And she said she's never experienced someone with a higher stress level in her body.
Oh,
even if I did all these wonderful things. So even if it all sounded so wonderful, and
how
that
could
is
she
something
tell, by the way, that you had so much stress?
No idea. She did some,
Okay.
who knows how significant this was, or how backed up this diagnosis was. But that was certainly something when I recognized, oh my God, yeah, that's right. I am driven by survival mode because I do what I want, because I change. So I challenge myself to make it successful no matter what. I could have sold tomatoes and I would have challenged myself to do it successfully because I said, I've chosen this. I have to now make it work. And so it was chosen, but it was driven. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, first and foremost, I think it's really cool that you've done all of these things, because you said something that so many women face where they do feel like they have to stay in that one lane. And again, this is a conversation that I had a few episodes ago, where, the guest that I had on was talking about all of our uniqueness coming together and leveraging that to actually perform. And so what I love is that you followed your passion, because a lot of people don't have the guts to do it. So it's really cool that you've had the guts to do it. But I want to understand, like, has it culminated at some point? Was there some point where, everything just became too much and it led you to what you do today with feminine mastery? Because obviously, that underlying stress and the pressure of having to make it work had to reach a certain point where maybe it wasn't possible to be continuing doing what you were doing.
Thank you. That's a really good point to reflect on. So what comes up is not becoming too muchness, because I then had children, and of course my priorities shifted. So this follow each passion kind of stopped a few years ago, and I was deepening in self-development and my coaching business and my coaching work. Feminine mastery came to me when I was coaching men and women. I had more female clients, but I was coaching men and women, and I already had a sense of, I understand women more. I am a better coach when I work with women. Just as an observation. And when I turned 40, there was one really crucial moment. I've done loads of training in trauma-sensitive coaching, and of course you go through all of this yourself. So years and years of self-development and bringing it to clients, running workshops, running seminars, deep, profound shifts that are very, very significant and useful. And still I broke down every month. And the voice in me got harsher the more I did, because I was like, oh my God, but I have done all of this. I have so many years of training. And when I turned 40, I recognized the pattern of my cycle. I had to turn 40 to get this map that is underneath everything. And these days I question, how can we not include this in any self-development journey? That the changingness, the changing of our nature, that we have different hormonal cocktails, that we have different hormonal situations in ourselves that make us see the world in a different way. So doing trauma work in your luteal phase is completely different than what you can access in your follicular phase, for example. And my moment was, and I noticed exactly, I was walking outside and the foxgloves were out. I live in West Wales, and the flowers are wonderful, like the wildflowers. It's changing colors all the time, the countryside. And in summer, in July, you have these foxgloves, these pink, big. And I stood in front of this foxglove, and I had this moment where I realized I hit existential fear again. And last month, it was about money. This month, it was about my raised beds not being ready. And this was a moment where I was like, it's not about the thing. It's not about the thing. It is a pattern. It is a pattern. And then this whole thing of getting into cycle awareness and connecting it with the circuits of emotions and what we have available when made so much sense. And yeah, Feminine Mastery was born.
Can you enlighten us, please, about these phases and the cycle awareness? I mean, personally, I know a little bit about it, but you've, struck a chord with me when you talked about and said it wasn't about the thing, but you noticed this pattern. And yeah, I mean, I also have felt these things, but I've just kind of always powered through, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think I fully understand what is the biological operating system that might be driving my decision making. And you also said something to me that was really striking, which is that for trauma therapy, you're not going to get the same thing based on whatever phase you said, the luteal versus the follicular, which is surprising. I don't know. I would love for you to kind of walk us through a baseline woman to woman, what you've uncovered.
Yes. So I love the picture of the inner seasons. We start in winter. That's the time when we bleed. That's the time with the day one. And let me go into spring and come back to winter because it's such a beautiful closing. So in spring, we have high estrogen. Estrogen is rising. We're opening up. I love to bring archetypes into this journey because I love to step into each phase fully, like really imagine I'm the maiden in the white dress and it's spring and I have ideas and I love a blank diary to write down my ideas. And sometimes I have too many ideas and I get stressed out about so many ideas that I all want to do at once. That is then the learning of, look, notice your ideas and write them down. Don't do all of them. So that's the spring phase. You open up. It's like spring. Everything's growing. You in the beginning, it's vulnerable because you come from the dark time of winter, from your bleed. And then you step into this spring energy. So your estrogen is rising and then estrogen peaks before ovulation. And that's the next phase. I call it the inner summer, the ovulation phase. It's the time where libido is high, where you love social interaction, where conversations happen naturally with your neighbors, where you just like to respond and you're in the gym and afterwards the ladies stand together and have a little joke and you love to join. So that's ovulation. Or you like to initiate things. You like to dress a little bit sexier. There are even studies that women dress different over the cycle. They just choose different. They also smell different over the cycle. So in ovulation phase, we have a scent that attracts partners. Partners react differently to women, or men react differently to women in ovulation than in, for example, their luteal phase. And that makes total sense. That's the time when you want, like, this is give me life. Mwah. It's like a peach. So this is the lover. I like to call it the lover or the mother. And for example, I tell my children we have this cycle clock in the kitchen so that they also know where I am. And I'm like, I like a lot of cuddles. Come, come, come. And so they know this is now. And then you have a drop of estrogen, and progesterone is slowly rising. And then you go into your luteal phase. So that's what I call the early autumn. Early autumn is a phase. So you have ovulation. That's a cut. That's like a real transition into autumn. And you might notice, or you might know how it feels when summer is over. And you're like, fuck, where's summer gone? Like outside, it's like, it was just warm yesterday and today I have to wear a hat. It's like a real cliff. For some women, this is really hard to go into their inner autumn, into their luteal phase. So this transition, it's really good to know what's happening. This was a day where my self-destruction was like, woof. What have you started? How can you? You're never finishing things. Why do you initiate so much? All these it's not safe. This is the time where your threat detection is up, where you notice everything that is not congruent. I like to call it the wizard. In early autumn, you like to organize things, get things ready, like be structured. It's a good time to close projects, to get it done, to get it on paper. And then you move in late luteal phase. That's also what we call PMS very often. And often that's the only thing we know about the cycle is PMS a few days before you bleed, then you bleed, and everything else we have never heard of. There's so much more. PMS is when you have a drop of up to 85% of progesterone and estrogen is already gone. And this is when you are very raw. The wizard with the sharp tongue, the sharp eyes, you hear more. I sometimes sit on the kitchen table and I'm like, gosh, everyone's talking so loud. I hear, but it's not that and that's the big shift. It's like, they are not wrong. They're not wrong for talking so loud. I hear more. And of course I can still make a request and say, guys, I hear much more. I'm here in my face. Can you please take care of this? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's owning where I am rather than blaming everyone else, what they do and are absolutely not aware of. And having a joke on the table is completely fine. That's nothing to blame anyone for. So that's the luteal phase, the late luteal phase. And then you start your bleed. And the bleed is the day one. And that's what I like to call the wise woman or the inner winter. It's the time to rest. It's the time where you're really very connected to intuition, into the bigger picture. It's the time where you have the answers that your head might not yet understand, but you just know, I have to leave this, or I have to go there, or I have to do this. And the plan's not yet ripe, and it's also not the time to make the plan, but you know something. So you are the wise woman. So you sit, you rest, you shed, you bleed, to then return in spring.
Wow. It's really lovely to hear the way that you describe it. I like the seasons and I can feel it, for anyone who lives in an area where they experience the 4 seasons. That's a really great way to put it. But the thing is that normal everyday life just doesn't ride and jive with this rhythm. And the way that society is structured doesn't really complement this cyclical biology. And so I think that that's why, what you said all makes sense. The smell, everything. Because if you take it way back to the beginning, when we didn't live in homes and have all of these things, we were living as creatures, as animals. And of course, we would have this scientific flow with nature. But the way that the world is today is the complete contrast to that. And there's so many women that are listening right now who are high functioning, who are having to keep pace with their male counterparts, who are in positions where, they have to go into an office or Monday to Friday and show up and deliver. And they can't necessarily flow in the beautiful way that you've described. They're leading things, they're building things, and a lot of accountability is on their shoulders. So I want to ask you if You have any advice for women who are trying to embrace this
Mm.
natural flow, but who are stuck in this life, which is completely paradoxical to that? And also, like, what is happening underneath it all? Like, how can a high functioning woman who has maybe spent years or even decades ignoring this flow? I mean, you even said yourself that it took you until 40 to have that aha moment where you were able to unearth it and start living life in a better congruence with it. I'd love if we could just dive into this a little bit more for those women who are not in the flow
Yeah,
state with their flow.
of course. Yes. It all sounds wonderful when you have a lot of time, right? But
Yeah,
what to do
exactly.
when
And
you're in
like, oh, and you said you have a cycle chart on the fridge, and I think that's really cool, and
yeah,
great so that your family knows, exactly how you're feeling and thinking.
yeah.
But some people, this is complete new territory for them.
Yes. 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 Wonderful question. And what comes first is acknowledging where you are. Because if you know, I'm right now super sensitive, I'm feeling very raw, and I have to go to this appointment. You still have to go to this appointment. But when you acknowledge, this is where I am right now, I'm in this phase, I know I'm vulnerable, I know I'm raw. This is why these conversations might grind more than usually. That is already a big step, because I don't expect myself to enjoy it. I don't expect myself to be this shiny, sexy mama in ovulation phase or the spring maiden with a lot of ideas. It's just fine. I will do it. I'll get through it. And it's just fine. And I don't give myself a hard time. I think we have such a harsh self-talk when we are not the best versions that we know we can be in spring and summer. If I expect all my cycle to be a spring version of myself, I will always give myself a hard time for it being different. And it's different half of my cycle. It's different for 14 to 20 days. Imagine we only have a few good days, or a few days full of estrogen, full of openness, full of, oh my God, give me life. I can't have enough. And then we are on threat detection. We are like much more vulnerable, much more raw. So it takes much more every social interaction. And then I find it and that's the question that you asked, how to integrate it into a linear system, how to be a cyclical being in a linear society. I love to say 2 seconds. What are 2 seconds that can change it? Is it like if you are in your menstruation phase, just sit a little bit longer. Just sit down a little bit more often. Just take an extra warm scarf into work. Just maybe make yourself a hot water bottle when you can, if that's kind of something that can fit in. Get yourself the comfortable shoes. Like these tiny little things of self-care, I find they make a huge, massive difference already. And it's a step towards acknowledging yourself. So it's an honoring of where you are, even if nobody knows, but you know. And you take yourself with a little bit more care than before by maybe pushing yourself or judging yourself that you don't perform as you did last week. And then
Yeah.
there's a lot more. Yes.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think those are very easy things to integrate, and especially with the self-talk, where, we can have these voices in our head where we question, we have self-doubt, and we start
Yeah.
to, go into the area of resentment. And that's kind of where I
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
shift gears next, is because a lot of women carry resentment because we have this self-talk going on in our head. And what can women do to kind of come around from that? And is it being too harsh on yourself? Is it a symptom of a choice that they made? what's really going on with everything related to resentment and the movement that you're starting to initiate in the world?
Yes, thank you. So resentment comes up when we ignore our needs. And when we step back from our needs. We do have needs, right? As human beings, we have needs, all of us. We have, and they are all the same. That is the beautiful thing. We have the same needs. Everyone wants respect. Everyone wants belonging. Everyone wants to be seen. And if I step back from these needs continually, I will end up in resentment. Of course, if my baby needs me and I have to get up in the night, even if I have a longing for sleep, I will not be resentful. But I might start being resentful if my husband never gets up because he could, right? So it's the one who has the power, the one who could, but doesn't. When there's a situation where someone else could, but doesn't, continually. And these needs get shoved down, and often by ourselves, by telling ourselves, oh, it's not so important. No, it's not so important. Then the resentment is rising, and resentment is bitter. Resentment is bitter, and it's long, and it's heavy. It's not something dynamic that we can kind of bring into the conversation and shift gear and find solutions. But when we have old and lurching resentment, it's quite a heavy backpack to carry. So the first step to work or to not even get into the sphere of resentment, I've started to really grow up. Oh my gosh, I think I'm starting to grow resentment. I'll better do something about it. Is to honor our needs. For example, everyone wants to be seen, but it's the needs that no one wants to really kind of admit. I don't want to admit. No, you get to be seen. No, I don't need to be seen. Of course I need to be seen. I'm a human being. I'm walking this world. I'm contributing. I want to make a difference. And even if I'm not consciously making a difference, I'm still here and I want to be seen. There's a need to be seen. And if I start to own it, that this is a need and all my other needs, that is a first step to work towards reducing your resentment, on not even giving it the ground to grow. But you have to go first. We cannot expect someone else to know our needs or to guess our needs if we're not aware ourselves. And that's where feminine mastery for me comes in so strongly. It's you go first. It's you stop overriding yourself. You don't sit there and blame your partner long enough until he changes something. It's you go first. You honor and acknowledge your need. You accept that you are driven by this kind of biology, and men have needs too. So exactly the same ones. That's not just, but as a woman, I have to acknowledge my biology. And that is the ownership that we need. And for me, that's the strongest step into self-leadership, when we honoring my needs. And it takes so much courage to do that. And we have also a lot attached. I work one-on-one with women. There is a lot coming up when we take this path. A lot of shame, a lot of attachment wounds of having to earn love, not having your needs come last when you are the older sibling and you had to care for your parents. So there's a lot of history that comes into our way so that we really have the possibility to honor our very beautiful needs. And once we do this, they become resources. They become drivers. They become us. They are just incredibly important for us as who we are.
Wow. I mean, I'm almost at a loss for words, because you said something so powerful about you go first. And it does take an exorbitant amount of courage. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head about that. And the resentment that you brought up, especially in the dynamic of a partnership and, a husband and a wife in particular, I want to go there next, because you are, obviously married to Harry, who has done a lot of work to really understand a woman's biology. And obviously he came on the show a few episodes ago, and it was really impressive and honorable to see that, a man decided to go down that path, for the sake of the relationship. And He said something about, relationships having to work and that, it almost takes a certain amount of stubbornness, right, to make it work because you're going to have these ups and downs. But he did talk about how understanding the biology really made the difference. I really want to hear about it from your vantage point, because you also said about how, oh, in the middle of the night, if the baby's crying and you're the one getting up and you could build resentment if he's not getting up. I personally could feel that moment because I've been through that moment. And
Yes.
it is very tough as a woman. So many things fall on our shoulders. We take the onus and we do things quietly. And so resentment can build up. And if you don't face it, then it could almost be catastrophic because you're bottling all of these things and emotions. And because resentment is so bitter, as you said, it could just literally be an explosion that your partner could never see coming because they didn't know about it. So I really want to hear about things from your perspective, how you had the courage to face, the relationship and acknowledge, what needed to change. How did you do that? And how can other women learn from your approach if they're in this position right now where they're feeling an enormous amount of resentment, but they haven't yet said anything?
Oof, that's a big one.
I know it's a big one.
Yes. And I love that you bring resentment into the relationship field, because I think it's so incredibly important that we are aware what we do if we don't listen to ourselves. Like, this is not luxury. If we grow resentment over time in relationships, it will end up in contempt, and people get sick. Like, there's a study that people get sick, people who live together, who are married, and there's contempt, routinely contempt. There is a study that people get sick, literally, and like severely sick if you live with someone who hates you. And they still stick together. So there's a lot that's really important. This is super important work, and I love the question. So the turning point for me and Harry, and we're married for 11 years, we have 2 kids, and of course a lot of ups and downs. Relationships have waves, and a lot of, everyone grows and you grow and the family system changes. And so there's a lot that has already been done, mostly from my side. I think a lot of women recognize this too. I do so much self-development. I look, he doesn't. I think a lot of women can probably nod and say, yeah, and what now? I still say, go, do. You can't wait for someone, and then you see what's going to happen. And in this case, with me stepping into this cycle awareness, and of course being quite emotion sassy, I love to then, really connect it and understand how this influences this circuit. And like, I'm really interested in how it makes us human, how it drives us, how it affects us. And there was a time, and Harry has a neurodivergent brain. I'm sure he mentioned this in some way. So for him, me going in my luteal phase without being aware was for him like the love of his life shutting the door into his face. And he blamed me for it. He said, you fall out of love. How can you do this? It's horrible to live with you. You're crazy. And that was literally the birthplace of his movement. When one day, and then I made my own journey and I understood my cycle. And I think this is really good to sit with women and understand this, and to not just read it somewhere, but to be be with some women. I'm running these journeys where women come together and we engage their own wisdom. And there's so much that we learn from each other. It's amazing. So do your own work. And then I came back and I said to him, and you never, ever, not once in your life, call me crazy again. And this is it. And you look into this. And if you don't, I don't want to even talk anymore. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in these conflicts. I'm not interested if we do not acknowledge this piece. And that was his cue to go there. And he has a very scientific brain and he loves to like nerd into this. And for him, all of a sudden, the whole world made sense. And he was discovering and discovering. And he was shocked that we don't know this, that this is in the dark. And he said, I have to talk about this. And yeah, it was an interesting time when I was already out there as a coach and doing my Instagram, like somewhere around having my workshops and little. And he starts and he like hits, I don't know, 16 million views within 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck you. I like, but I'm glad someone does it. And I'm glad the message goes out. So it's interesting to whom we listen. But that's
for sure.
Story.
I mean, that is as well a shocking thing that I noticed. And that's why, like, as well, I think that these forums are so important for us women to continue to be loud and be heard and be bold and direct.
Yes. And then we need the men on board. I think we only can do this together. We can only do this together if we want to change. And I really see this as, of course, I'm for a long time in this nonviolent communication movement and like, change. But I had never had a sense of more change towards a peaceful togetherness, towards genuine, loving, long-term relationships. And that's, of course, where I am. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'm like very interested in how to keep partnerships alive long-term. I never saw a bigger chance than when we include what we know today.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that that's something, historically wasn't included, because women were expected to be more submissive. And there are still a vast majority of cultures and religions whereby the ecosystem of a heterosexual relationship is driven by this doctrine. And I think that that is where it becomes very challenging because women are not allowed to have that voice. I just want to ask super quick if you have any advice for a woman who might be stuck in that place, because the way that you went to Harry and was like, oh my gosh, you can't call me crazy anymore. And, you were pretty ballsy in saying, like, it sounded like you were like, whatever happens, however he reacts, if he continues, I'm happy to walk away. But so you were comfortable with that, but some women might not be comfortable with that. Are there any, modalities or methods in which someone who might be a little bit more timid could gently approach the conversation with their partner while being respectful towards that kind of dynamic where the woman is still expected to be a little bit more submissive in the partnership?
Thank you. And thank you for bringing in that. Of course, I'm a white woman with my own business. I can say it in this way. And yes, of course, there is a lot of different power dynamics that require something else. It's not that and that's really not where I am to say everyone can do this.
Yeah.
And everyone should do this. No, absolutely not. I do think, and this is, of course, my kind of wondering. I don't want to act from a blind spot of saying, oh, this is what everyone should do or can do. What I think is owning it yourself. Again, you go first. And landing in a place of understanding so that you're not resentful. That you are like, this is where I am. And from this place to also acknowledge that he doesn't know, that he might not do things because he wants to be mean or he wants to ignore you actively. But for example, when you land in your luteal phase, to just give information, to say, I do feel like, look, and there are charts these days, maybe to invite a conversation where we can gently say, look, right now, everything's louder, everything's more landing harder. You might get a harder reaction from me because I might be more stressed. I might be more snappy because I am in this phase. And to just bring in knowledge. I'm not saying let's educate our men because I think they should still do their own journey, but we can, I think the first step is to let them know we are safe, even if we include this. So we will have more of each other. We will have a better relationship. We will have more sex. We will have more joy. We will have more fun if we include that we're different, that I am not like linear and have a 24-hour cycle, which men have, almost like daily, and you as a woman have a 28-day cycle. Like, just let's acknowledge difference. And yeah, these can be these gentle, small conversations of just sharing more how you are, not from a place of, and now you have to do a lot of things for me, but just, I noticed that naming, I'm becoming very specific about naming what's going on in my body, because how can anyone know? How can boys learn in school that period is blood? That's a few days, stay away from the women, a few days before they're moody, and that's it. They have no ideas about, oh my God, I feel so bubbly right now. I could embrace the entire world and let's do something together. And I'm in this phase, and yes, it's going to be gone in a few days, I know, but let's do this now to share the good and the harder moments. But of course, your awareness comes first.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that it sounds like awareness is really the key to success here. And it is really crazy that in this day and age, it's still not really, it's still frowned upon to talk about it. And the education system has not evolved. And I often wonder, if humanity understood this, if business understood this, if male leaders understood this, how much more could we unlock together if, there was this mutual understanding on each side of the table. And I really appreciate the advice that you bring into the equation for women who are more timid and a little bit afraid to approach the topic with their partner about, just bringing a subtle awareness, telling them this is how I feel. And, having open communication, it sounds so rudimentary, but it really seems to be the key to success for a long-term relationship. And that is, the irony and the sadness that I often see in my own circle of women is, a lot of women are just still too afraid to bring it up and only talking to their girlfriends about it. And I want to address, one more thing about this whole non-resentfulness, because I know that you're passionate about that topic and you really want to get that message out there. For a woman who's saying, but what happened to me was real and I have my right to be angry, and just really feeling all the feels, what would you say to her?
Oh, I would say yes, please. Do it. Do it. Like, feelings you cannot shut them away. They are there. You can just lock them in the basement. They just knock on the door even harder. They point you to something. They point you to your needs. So feelings are incredibly important to invite and to be, to be a container for them, to give them space. And I'm really saying this so that you stop being shocked about your feelings. And because you're so shocked, you point at someone. Because you want to get away, you're so angry. And so you point at the first person and blame the first person, mostly your partner, for everything. Or it's like becoming your target for anger. But to just acknowledge, I'm fucking angry and this is my energy and I'm going to move now. I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to, or I'm going to invite my partner for a fight. And I'm like, I want to fight now. I think fighting is really important in a relationship because we know we're there. But you can fight well and you can fight not well. That's a different topic. But to feel your energy, so anger is the way forward. It shows you what's not right, what's incongruent. So where your values are maybe overridden or where you need to adjust, where something needs to change, where something's unfair, feel the anger and make it part of you. You are angry. this is one of the circuits that run in you, that is anger, and anger is healthy. And to move away from this, we need to be nice and we need to be pleasant. And this is who we are. Because it's not true. It's just half of the coin that, of course, the world has picked up. And this is how we are seen, the nice women that have it all together, that are steady in the linear understanding, because I think we are steadier. We are wonderfully steady in our changing rhythm. We are like coming back all the time. We're coming back all the time. And that's an incredible continuity, an incredible skill of showing up and of continuing, but just not in this line, but in this and in this and in this. And it's always back. So yeah, to just acknowledge that anger is a part of yourself. Because who are you most? I mean, just imagine, who do you trust when you think of the people in your field? I trust people who can feel their emotions, because then I don't have to be afraid that it comes out on me in a moment when I'm like not expecting it, or when I don't want to be around. But I know they have sovereignty, and this is where the work comes in, with their feelings, over their feelings. They are partnering with themselves.
Absolutely. I really can totally jive with what you said about that. You can try to lock the feelings away as much as possible, but they'll come knocking back. And it can be, overwhelming if you bottle and you don't address it. And I completely agree about the point with, having the right fight with your partner and knowing how to address that. And I hope that this conversation inspires women to be able to do that more and to have the confidence and courage to face it, to drive the awareness, to, really return to themselves. And you said it too, that is the sovereignty of having that courage over yourself. I think this is a wonderful place to leave things. I think we could continue talking about this for so long. I absolutely love the, awareness that you've given my community about the cycle and how we can really embrace it. Before we go, can you please share with everybody the best way to get in touch, and if they would love to work with you, how they can find out more information?
Thank you so much. So I'm most active on Instagram and on Facebook. You can find me at Feminine Mastery. I have a website, femininemastery.com. I work one-to-one. I accompany clients over a 3-month period, but I really go into their feminine mastery, or I work as a coach with just one-to-one sessions. And I have programs that are again starting in September, where I run women's groups, and we go over a stretch of time with different topics, from resentment to the mother's gaze to cycle awareness, really looking at the female experience from different angles and diving in one-to-one. And so my spaces are quite intense. I like to call them journeys, to really allow transformation to happen. And I have a download. If you want to dive into your seasons right now, you can go to my Instagram. In the bio, you have the link, and it's a small video series that you can get there.
Oh, thank you so much. I absolutely love that. And I just have to say it again. I really appreciate that you are creating this safe space for women, because I think women, we just need these outlets. We need to know that we have a community that we can tap into, even if, it's not a friend or anything. I just really feel your allyship. So thank you for bringing this to women. And I really hope that, women take advantage of the community that you're building, because the world is a better place with women in it. And I really think that, what you're doing is just so wonderful. So thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.